Daniel stood at the head of the grand conference table, his heart pounding as he presented his investment strategy. The boardroom was filled with executives, all eyes fixed on him. At the far end sat Chief Nwosu, his grandfather, the man who had built the Nwosu Group into one of the most powerful business empires in Lagos. Daniel had spent months researching this venture, convinced it would be his moment to prove himself worthy of the family legacy. "This is the future," Daniel declared, pointing to the financial projections on the screen. "With the right backing, we could dominate the emerging market before our competitors even realize what's happening." For a moment, there was silence, then a chuckle, not of approval, but of disbelief. "And what makes you think you know more than me?" Chief Mosu's voice was like steel. "You think your fancy reports can replace decades of wisdom?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Grandfather, I've studied the trends. This investment is reckless." Chief Nwosu slammed his cane against the floor. "You gambled with my money and lost. Do you know how much damage you've done?" The blood drained from Daniel's face. "What? No, that's impossible." "The deal collapsed overnight. The partners pulled out. We lost millions because of your foolish ambition." The old man rose from his chair, eyes blazing with fury. "I trusted you, Daniel. I gave you a chance, and you failed me. You are no longer a part of this family's business. You are no longer my grandson." Daniel felt the room spin. The murmurs of the executives filled his ears, but none of them dared to speak up for him. His grandfather's words struck harder than any physical blow. "Grandfather, please." "Enough," Chief Morsu barked. "Leave, and don't ever come back." Stunned, Daniel turned to his uncle, his cousin Seniwan. But they all looked away. He was alone. With slow, heavy steps, he gathered his files and walked out of the boardroom, his entire future crumbling around him. The golden life he had always known had just been ripped away, leaving him standing at the edge of an abyss, and he had no idea what came next. The weight of his grandfather's words pressed down on Daniel like an unbearable burden. His steps felt heavy as he made his way through the bustling streets of Lagos, a stark contrast to the silent turmoil raging inside him. The world had not stopped for his misfortune, but his own had crumbled in an instant. With nowhere else to turn, he found himself at Adaora's doorstep, his wife. She was his anchor, the one person who had always believed in him. But as she opened the door and saw the pain etched across his face, a flicker of hesitation passed through her eyes. "Daniel? What happened?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. He wanted to say everything at once, to unload the weight of his disgrace, but all he could manage was, "I lost everything." Adaora pulled him inside, wrapping him in a comforting embrace. "It's going to be okay," she whispered. "We'll figure this out." But not everyone shared her sentiment. As soon as Madame Beatrice, Adora's mother, entered the living room, her expression hardened. "Why is he here?" she demanded. "Mama, Daniel needs us right now," Adaora protested. Beatrice folded her arms, eyeing him with disdain. "Us? This boy has been thrown out of his own family. You think he can offer you a future now? Look at him. He's nothing more than a beggar." Daniel flinched, but held his head high. He refused to let Beatrice's words break him. "Mama, please," Adaora pleaded. "Just let him stay until he figures things out." Beatrice let out a long sigh, shaking her head. "Fine, but he will earn his place under my roof. No man lives here for free." Daniel met her gaze, determination flickering in his eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes." And so it began. Stripped of his wealth, his status, and his pride, Daniel found himself in a world he never imagined and where survival meant swallowing his dignity and proving his worth in the most humbling way possible. The days that followed were grueling. Daniel woke before dawn to sweep the compound, fetch water and scrub the floors. The scent of detergent and the ache in his muscles became his daily companions. He, who once attended high-class business meetings, now found himself washing dishes and running errands for Madame Beatrice. Adaora tried to soften the blow, offering him small moments of kindness, a warm meal, a reassuring smile, but nothing could ease the sting of Beatrice's constant ridicule. "Faster! You think you're still some rich prince?" Beatrice sneered one evening as he struggled to carry a heavy sack of rice into the kitchen. "You better work like the rest of us." Daniel gritted his teeth and kept moving. He wouldn't break, Not here, not now. Rachel, Adaora's best friend, watched him with quiet amusement. You know, Daniel, she said one evening as they sat outside, you could leave. Find a way to prove yourself outside of this house. He exhaled, staring up at the night sky. I will, he murmured. I just need time. But time was something Beatrice had no patience for. And soon, her schemes to humiliate him would escalate beyond just words. Madame Beatrice's patience wore thinner with each passing day. To her, Daniel was nothing more than a burden, an unwanted guest who had overstayed his welcome. She hatched new ways to break his spirit, giving him impossible tasks and ensuring that no matter how hard he tried, it was never enough. Beatrice tossed a bundle of laundry at Daniel with a sneer. Make sure you wash my pants properly. I don't want to see a single stain left, she barked, her voice laced with disdain. As Daniel scrubbed the fabric with gritted teeth, humiliation burned in his chest. He had swallowed his pride countless times, enduring Beatrice's insults for Adaora's sake. But as he wrung out the last piece of clothing, a quiet resolve settled within him. Scrub the floors again! I can still see stains! She barked one afternoon, arms akimbo. Daniel, sweat rolling down his forehead, swallowed his frustration and bent down to redo his work. He had no choice. He had to endure. Rachel, never missing an opportunity to poke at him, smirked from the sidelines. Still think you're going to reclaim your throne, Daniel? Face it, you're just another struggling man now. Adaora, though torn between her love for Daniel and her loyalty to her mother, did what she could to shield him. She brought him extra food when Beatrice wasn't looking and whispered encouragement in his ear when things became unbearable. Daniel refused to be beaten. Despite Beatrice's insults and the menial labour she forced upon him, he used every spare moment to work on a new business idea. He stayed up late, sketching plans, studying market trends, and reaching out to old contacts. One afternoon, he met up with an old friend for help, Tunde. Daniel, I heard what happened, Tunde said, shaking his head. Man, this is rough. I don't know if you'll bounce back from this, Daniel sighed. I just need a small push, a little capital to get started. Tunde hesitated before finally sighing. I wish I could help, but times are tough for me too. Disappointment settled heavily in Daniel's chest. Another dead end. Back at Adaora's home, Beatrice's cruelty intensified. She belittled him at every turn, calling him a burden and questioning his worth. Even Adaora, who had always defended him, began to waver under the pressure. Daniel, she said one night, how long will this go on? I love you, but I don't know if I can keep fighting my mother for you. Daniel's heart ached, but he masked it with determination. Just a little longer, Adaora, I promise. But promises were fragile things, and time was running out. But the final blow came when Beatrice devised her cruelest scheme, yet setting up a high-profile suitor for Adaora. The son of a wealthy businessman, Emeka, arrived in style, pulling up in his luxury car and exuding effortless charm. Now this is a real man, Beatrice announced, throwing a pointed glance at Daniel. A man who can actually provide for my daughter. Under pressure from her mother and friends, Adaora begins to distance herself. A rich suitor, Emeka, proposes to Adaora, offering her the life Daniel cannot. Their argument erupted like a storm. So this is it, Adaora? Daniel's voice trembled with frustration. After everything, you're choosing him because he has money? Adaora folded her arms, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's not just about money, Daniel. It's about stability, my future. I've been the one providing for this family while you struggle to find your footing. I can't do this anymore, Daniel. Adaora screamed, her voice laced with frustration and bitterness. You promised me a good life, but look at us now. We can barely afford to eat. Daniel clenched his fists, his heart pounding. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I don't stay up every night, wondering how to fix everything? Wondering isn't enough. I need action. I need stability. She turned away, her shoulders shaking. I'm tired of struggling, Daniel. I want out. So that's it? Daniel's voice cracked. After everything we've been through, you're just going to walk away? I can't keep living in uncertainty while you chase dreams with no guarantee, Adaora said. Guarantee? Daniel scoffed. Did our love mean nothing? Or was I just a stepping stone until something better came along? She hesitated, but Beatrice's voice echoed in her mind. I love you, Daniel, but love isn't enough. Daniel took a step back, his heart shattering. Then I guess I was wrong about us. Adaora chooses Emeka, leaving Daniel heartbroken. Daniel clenched his fists, his heart pounding. Was he truly losing Adaora? He moves out of Adora's house and disappears from Adora's life. With no money, no home, and no support, Daniel was forced to rebuild from the ground up. He took on menial jobs, working tirelessly from dawn till dusk. He endured humiliation, whispers behind his back, and the cold indifference of those who once revered him. But he refused to break. He spent every spare moment learning new skills, studying market trends, and planning his comeback. It took years of perseverance, but eventually his efforts bore fruit. He started a small business zone that required little capital but immense dedication. Slowly he regained his footing. His reputation, though tarnished, was not forgotten. People began to take notice of his resilience, and opportunities came knocking once more. With patience and strategy, he rebuilt his empire, stronger and wiser than before. Years later, Daniel is now a wealthy entrepreneur. His name resurfaces in business circles, and people who mocked him start to regret it. Meanwhile, Adora's marriage to Emeka turns sour. The charming suitor she once admired is nothing like the man she married. Emeka is controlling, dismissive, and often cruel. Arguments become a daily occurrence, and Adaora feels trapped in a life she thought would be her salvation. One evening, after yet another fight, Adaora sits alone in their grand but empty house. Her mind drifts to Daniel, his kindness, his dreams, and the love she once had but discarded. She realizes her mistake, but pride and fear keep her from reaching out. Beatrice, however, hears of Daniel's success. She scoffs when a friend of hers gushes about his achievements. It's probably exaggerated. He was always just a dreamer. But deep down, doubt creeps in. One evening, Adaora finally breaks down, her voice trembling as she confesses, Mama, I'm not happy. Emeka, he's not who I thought he was. I feel trapped. Beatrice, taken aback, folds her arms. You had everything you wanted, didn't you? Wealth, security. Wasn't that what mattered? Adaora shakes her head. None of it matters if I feel like a prisoner. Emeka controls everything. He barely respects me. I thought I was making the right choice, but I was wrong. Beatrice exhales, her pride warring with her concern. And what do you want me to do? You made your bed, Adaora. Tears brim in Adora's eyes. I want to fix my mistake. I want to see Daniel. Beatrice scoffs, but then hesitates. News of Daniel's success had reached her ears more than once. She had dismissed it, unwilling to admit that the man she once belittled had risen far beyond her expectations. But now, seeing her daughter's misery, she wavers. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to see him, she murmurs, more out of hope for regaining status than concern for her daughter's heart. Adaora gathers her courage and arranges to meet Daniel. The next day, when she finally sees him, standing tall and confident, she barely recognizes the man before her. She stood before him, looking hesitant, regret flickering in her eyes. Daniel, I heard about your success. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have left you. Daniel studied her for a moment. The woman who once abandoned him now sought to reclaim a place in his life. A part of him wanted to welcome her back, to believe in second chances. But another part remembered the nights he spent alone, the battles he fought without her by his side. Tears well up in her eyes. Emeka isn't who I thought he was. I should never have left you. I was wrong, and I know I don't deserve it. But can we start over? Daniel exhales. Adaora, do you remember the last thing you said to me? That love wasn't enough? She nods, ashamed. I was scared. I thought I was choosing security, but I lost something much more important. For a moment, silence stretches between them. Then, Daniel speaks, his voice firm yet gentle. Thank you for teaching me resilience, Adaora, but I've moved on. Her breath catches. Daniel, please. He shakes his head. I deserve someone who believes in me, even when I'm not at my best. I won't be anyone's second choice. With that, he turns and walks away, not with bitterness, but with the quiet confidence of a man who finally knows his worth. And for the first time, Adaora realizes that the greatest loss wasn't Daniel's wealth, it was losing the man who would have loved her unconditionally. Should Daniel give Adaora a second chance, or is it too late? Tell us in the comments. And hey, if you like this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it, as it really helps us a lot and won't cost you a thing.